Hey everyone, welcome back. Welcome back to MS Inspire. And today is the last day and day 5 of Industry Inspire series. And today we have Linda, Omkar, and Ajinkya also. So without any further ado, I'll just give the session to Omkar. So hey Omkar.
Hey Sundareshwar, thanks for passing it over to me. And today is the last day of Industry Inspire series, and I'm very much happy that we have such a professional here with us. Her name is Linda Thackeray. She is the director of the Microsoft Garage program. So it is an initiative started by Microsoft, and Linda also manages the garage in Dublin, Ireland. So she is currently in Microsoft Ireland and she has 22 years of experience for Microsoft. So today, it's a pleasure to have her over for today's session and like talking like giving some talking things about Linda. Linda also in her 21 years of experience at Microsoft, she has extensive experience delivering programs and events that enrich employees, live to opportunities to collaborate, learn and grow in their roles. So she is very fond of hack culture. She recently also did a Microsoft hackathon. So currently she is the director of the Garage program, and she also held roles in developer group, Microsoft IT, the Windows division and the worldwide operations. So I hope that you learned today, like she's going to talk about her journey at Microsoft, and it's a pleasure to have her. And without wasting further time, I'll just pass it over to Linda. Hello, Linda.
Hello, and hello from Microsoft Ireland. I'm thrilled to be here and to speak with you all. And I think what I need to do is I actually need to update my profile on LinkedIn because I just hit my 22-year mark at Microsoft August 3rd. So I started actually at Microsoft August 3rd, 1998. So that was a long time ago, and so I've been here that long. But and it's been a fun journey. So, like Omkar said, I right now my current role is director of the Garage in Ireland. So, and I've been working with the Garage with Microsoft for several years now. I recently was in Boston and built out a garage space there and programming there as well too. And so I'm here in Ireland doing the same, building out a wonderful space here as well, and really enjoying it. So yeah, so I have a little bit of trivia for you as I'm going to go ahead and share my deck that I've got here for you. But that is, does anybody know what the tradition is at Microsoft for when you have when you have an anniversary? I don't know if you want to pop that into the chat window. I'm actually looking at that as well too. But Microsoft actually has a tradition that when you have an anniversary, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to bring in 1 pound of M&Ms for every year that you've been at the company. And so this year I didn't actually bring in M&Ms because of everything that's happening with the pandemic, and no one would be able to eat them unless they were individually wrapped. And so what I'll do is I'll wait till next year and bring in 23 pounds of M&Ms next year when the time comes. But yeah, so that's kind of a fun tradition that we have at Microsoft. But what I wanted to talk to you today about is I've actually got 2 goals for today's discussion. One is just kind of share my career journey through Microsoft, some of the challenges that I've encountered and some of the good things and things like that, and have you get to know me a little bit better. And then my second goal is I've actually got 6 career tips that I have actually accumulated over the years, 6 tips that have actually helped me advance me in my career, and hopefully they will be useful career tips for you as well too. So I will share those with you. And then, I'm super happy to have whatever conversation we want to have at the end. We're going to leave obviously some time at the end for Q&A. And whenever you have a career discussion like this, where I think the most benefit comes is from the questions that you have. And I'm super transparent. I tend to actually overshare a little bit when it comes to career stuff. So, feel free to ask me whatever questions that you have about, what it's like to work at Microsoft, what it's like to be a woman at Microsoft, what it was like to work in the garage, what does it mean to hack, that sort of thing. Happy to answer whatever questions you have. Okay, so with that, let me just quickly start with my career journey here, let's see if I can get this to advance. Boom. There we go. So my career journey, actually, I'm going to start it with university. So I graduated from Brigham Young University back in, long time ago, 1992. And I actually have a non-traditional career journey when it comes to Microsoft and high-tech companies. Typically the people who work for Microsoft come from, a tech background. Maybe they, got a degree in computer science or something, computer engineering or something similar to that. My background is actually in political science. So I got a degree, a bachelor's degree in political science with a minor in Spanish. Excuse me. And so my career plans, I had very, defined career plans. My plan was I was going to move to California. I was going to run for office. I was eventually going to become the governor of California. And after a few years of doing that, I was going to run for office, become the president of the United States. And like that, this was going to be my career plan. That's what I was going to do. And there was nothing good that was going to dissuade me from that. That was the goal. I spent some time working on Capitol Hill, and I really, really enjoyed my time working in that political arena. And so, I had decided that was going to be my path. But while I was kind of making my plans and getting ready to move to California, I had a roommate at the time who was working for a tech company, a company called WordPerfect. And that company at the time was a competitor to Microsoft. And she came home from work one day and she let me know that they had some job openings there, and she encouraged me to apply for a position. And being the kind of person that I am, I've always been somebody who's very curious about what things are. I was curious about what positions that they would have available. I didn't think anything would come of it because that wasn't my plan, right? I wasn't going to go into high tech. I was going to go into politics, but I figured, what the heck? Why not? At best, I would get some interviewing experience, and at worst, they would say no, and that would be okay because that wasn't going to be my career plan anyway. So I applied, and that application for a position with WordPerfect ended up being probably one of the best decisions of my life, because within a 2-week period of time, my position, the role that I was going to take when I was going to move to California, I found out that position was no longer available to me, and I was offered a position as a Danish typesetter with WordPerfect. So, and I found myself in a very weird place because I didn't speak Danish. I had no idea what typesetting even was. But yet here I was in the situation of being put on a completely different career path from what I had originally intended. And so there's a famous quote by Abraham Lincoln, which is, whatever you are, be a good one. And this is something that my dad used to tell us kids growing up. That whatever it is that we decided to do, whatever it is, wherever we ended up being, if I was going to be a farmer, to be a good farmer. If I was going to work at McDonald's, to be a good worker at McDonald's. If I was going to work in the high-tech industry, be good at it. If I was going to work in politics, be good at it. So he really instilled in us as children that, whatever it is that we decided to be or do in our lives, that we should really strive to be good at it. And so here I was now in a situation where I was a Danish typesetter. Again, it wasn't my plan, but here I was, and again, doing something completely different than what I thought my original career plan could be. And so I figured, I don't speak Danish. I don't know what typesetting is, but I'm in this situation now. And so I'm going to try to figure out a way to be good at it. So I was actually at WordPerfect for 6 years. And during that time period, I actually moved around from different jobs and really kind of sought to find my niche there. And so not only did I do Danish typesetting, but then I moved into a technical instructor role, and eventually I moved into a Spanish editor role because I spoke Spanish at that time. Unfortunately, I don't speak Spanish anymore, but I did at one point. And then I ultimately ended up being an international program manager. So it took me about 6 years to move from the one position up to the international program manager role. And one day out of the blue, while I was in that role, I got a call from a Microsoft recruiter. And they let me know that that there was an open position, and they would like me to apply for it. And so, again, being the kind of person that I was, being very curious about all of the different types of roles and different things that are out there, I thought, send me a job description. Let's take a look at it. And so they sent me the job description, and I actually laughed out loud because in my mind, there was not one thing written on that job description that I felt that I was qualified for. Like I seriously thought that I'm like, who read something about me online and thought, oh, this person would be good for this role? Because in my view, I did not fit the role at all with what they were looking for. But they wanted to interview me for it. And so I'm like, okay, let's give this a try, So again, they wanted to fly me to, I was living in Utah at the time. They wanted to fly me to Seattle. They put me up in a nice hotel, and I figured, it would be kind of a fun little vacation to go actually try this out. I didn't have any expectations whatsoever that I would get hired on. But so I flew into Seattle on a Monday. I interviewed on a Tuesday. I flew back Tuesday night. Wednesday afternoon, I got a call from the same Microsoft recruiter letting me know that they wanted to offer me a position and if I would be open to taking it. And so, again, being one of those that I'm like, okay, let's do this. I want to give this a try. And so I packed up my things that weekend, and I actually started at Microsoft that following Monday. And my first original title was I was a program manager. They hired me into a program manager role for a group called Product Release Services, which I don't think that group actually exists anymore. This was back in 1998. And so as I was preparing for this little talk, I actually found this is my original badge, ID badge that I got when I was working at Microsoft. And what I find hilarious is like when you zoom in, it's like, look at the eyes. Okay, those eyes actually say it all. I think those are like crazy eyes. Those are eyes of like, what the heck have I just gotten myself into? I have no idea what I'm doing. And here I have left everything that I know, and I've moved across the country to a city that I've never been to before. And now I'm taking this role that in my mind, I felt like that I was completely unqualified for, but yet here I was. And at that time too, my dad's voice kept ringing in my head, which is like, whatever it is that you do, you got to do whatever it takes to try to be a good one at it, try to be good at it. And so that's what I settled into do. I thought, okay, I'm here at Microsoft now. I'm in this new role. I gotta kind of like figure out what this is and be good at it. And I'm gonna like fully admit that getting started at Microsoft was a challenge for me. It's like I had no idea what I was doing, frankly, and I didn't like the culture at that time. It's a very different culture now than what it was back then. But back then it was a very different culture, even from what I had come from when I was working for WordPerfect for that 6 years that I was there. And I didn't really like it. And so 6 months after getting hired onto Microsoft, I had decided that I had had enough. And I sent actually a letter of resignation to my manager because I thought like that this wasn't really the place for me. I didn't really fit in. I didn't really like what I was doing, and so I figured I would just pack up and move back to Utah, which is where I had come from. Well, a few minutes later, my manager comes, flying down the hallway, and she came into my office and she shut the door behind her, and we actually had a really great conversation. And she spent a portion of the afternoon really kind of talking me off the ledge. She gave me some really good tips and tricks on how to acclimate myself into the culture of what Microsoft was at that time. And more importantly, she really kind of gave me some guidance in terms of, how to navigate this role that I was in, how to navigate this system that I was now finding myself within as well too. So anyway, so that, I withdrew my letter of resignation, and I started to connect with those around me. I started getting outside of my office a little bit more, and started getting curious about the organization and the teams in the organization as well, and the work that they did. And I found that there was one team, a sister team in there that I liked what it is that they were doing, and what it is that they were doing really resonated with me. It was a team that was focused on problem solving. And not only did I like the work that they were doing, but I actually really liked the people. And so about 5 months in later so this was like about 11 months into my career, I found out that the manager of that team was actually going to be moving on to something else. And so I made it a point to actually go into the leader of the organization's office and let them know that that if that position were to become available, that it would be something that I would be interested in doing. And so a few weeks later, the manager of that role actually did leave the role, and I was asked to move in and actually take over that management role. And so now I found myself yet again in another position where now here I am now a manager of this role and of this team, and figuring out what that meant to be now a manager at Microsoft as well too. So back in that time, and I'm almost finished talking about this, and then we'll move on to the tips and tricks. But back in that time, when you became a manager at Microsoft, they used to send you on a week-long retreat to really kind of ingrain yourself and learn about what it meant to be a manager at the company. And so I signed up for this, and part of that thing, that activity was this activity that we did, which was called Myers-Briggs. And for those of you that are not familiar with Myers-Briggs, basically what it is, it's an introspective self-reporting questionnaire indicating differing psychological preferences and how people perceive the world and make decisions. So basically, it's a personality test, and you take it, and what it does is it attempts to assign you to one of four categories. You're either an introvert or extrovert, you're either sensing or intuiting, you're either thinking or feeling, or you're judging or perceiving. And so before taking this class, what they had us do is they actually had us take this MBTI questionnaire. So to kind of like figure out what kind of personality we had and where we would fit within the company and that sort of thing as well too. And so on the day of that discussion, we actually got together as a group and came into the room, and what they had done is they had actually put this grid up on the wall, and they had actually plotted where all of the Microsoft executives and leaders fell on this chart. And so, like, for example, if you were an ESTJ, that meant you were an extrovert, sensing, thinking, judging person, which means that you are efficient, outgoing, systematic, analytical, results-driven, traditional, and basically you like to run the show. And what they had done is all of the Microsoft leaders and executives at that time had taken this MBTI personality test, and so we knew where they all fit on this grid. And so can anybody guess where most of Microsoft executives at that time fit on this grid? I will tell you, they actually all felt, not all, but about a good majority of them fell into one specific category, and that was INTJ. So what that meant was, the mastermind, innovative, strategic, logical, reserved, driven by own original ideas for improvements. So most Microsoft folks, leaders at that company at that time, fell into this INTJ category. And so now it came time, basically we spent a lot of time kind of talking like what INTJ meant, like what that meant for the company and why that was such a good personality for the leaders and things like that at that time to be running the company. And then it came time for us to plot our personality assessments on the same grid. And it was all a little bit of a haze at the time when this happened, but I watched and realized that I was the only person of them all that had the exact opposite result of most of the executives and leaders at Microsoft. So I am an ESFP, the polar opposite of an INTJ. And an ESFP, what? It means I'm sociable, spontaneous, loves surprises, juggles multiple projects, witty. And I thought to myself at that time, like, wow, this can't be good. This cannot be a good thing. I'm like exactly opposite from what we're talking about as being, some of the great leaders of the company and what that meant for me. After that session was done, I actually got pulled aside by the leaders of, or by the instructors of this class that we were teaching, just to kind of see how I was doing, right? And how I was feeling about all this. And it really got me wondering, is like, is this really the place for me? Because I am so different. Like, what did this really mean for me, being such a different personality type from what we had discussed was, really, the important personality type to be in at the time. And I really, really struggled with that. And so a few years later, I was reading a book called Eat That Frog, 21 Great Ways to Stop Procrastinating and Get More Done in Less Time by Brian Tracy. It is a great book. It is a book that I highly recommend, that if you haven't read it, this is one of those that you want to go buy and keep and read. I actually read, in fact, I just read it again last week. It's a really small book, and so you can read it in an afternoon, but it has a lot of really, really great information in it. And basically, in this book, one of the sections of the book, he talks about, figuring out why you're on the payroll. It's like, what makes you uniquely you? What value do you bring? Why does your project or your team or your organization need you? So, and this quote that I have here is a quote from the book that I read, which was very impactful for me, which was, leverage your special talents. Determine exactly what it is that you are very good at doing, or could be very good at, and throw your whole heart into doing those things very, very well. So basically, figure out what makes you you, figure out what your strengths are, and then figure out a way to leverage the hell out of those strengths in your roles. So after reading this, that really kind of took me back to that retreat a few years earlier, where I had experienced where I was so different from most of the leaders at the company. And all this time I had been really trying to hide those differences rather than embracing them. I was really kind of trying to hide them. And it was exhausting. I mean, it was really, really exhausting. But in reality, did my differences really make me less worthy as a Microsoft employee? Like, hell no, it didn't. The company needed people like me, and it was time for me to really kind of celebrate those differences and actually figure out how I can use those differences to my advantage. So the fact that I'm different now is actually a really, really good thing, and it's something to be celebrated, and it's something to be leveraged. So from that moment on, I actually sought to discover what those talents are, what those strengths are, and then really kind of figure out, like, why really am I on the payroll? Why did they hire me all those years ago? There was something that those people saw in me. Figure out what that is, and then leverage the hell out of it. So figuring out what that was actually is what brought me to today. And I'm still doing this. I'm still kind of figuring out what my strengths are, because strengths, I'm learning new strengths all the time, and leveraging those. And more importantly, I'm actually looking for leaders who I can report to that appreciate and know my strengths and can leverage me in ways to actually magnify them in achieving my goals and objectives. So anyway, so there you see my last few years of having an M&Ms before the pandemic hit, anyway, it's been a great 22-year run, and hopefully I've got several more years to go before I'm done. Anyway, and I'm realizing, like, I've been yakking up a little bit too long, so I'm gonna keep going. But I'm gonna get to my career tips. So this actually brings me to all of you. So as employees of whatever company you're going to end up at, you're going to be given an opportunity to unleash your ideas, to follow your instincts, and to take risks and exercise your creative muscle. And during the course of your tenure, you're going to learn new technologies. You're going to work closely with people of different backgrounds. You're going to help foster, a culture in which people are empowered, self-directed, and nimble. And I just would encourage you to take advantage of all of the awesomeness that's going to be coming your way. And I've got 6 career tips that have helped me along the way that will hopefully help you as well. And we'll go through these quickly, because I want to leave a lot of time for Q&A. But my career tip number 1 is you have to come to the realization that you own your career. Like, you own it. You own your success, and you own your failure. Whatever path it is that you choose to move forward on, it's like you own the outcome of that. And so don't sit back and wait for things to happen. You need to take the initiative to actually make those things happen on your own. One of the things that I like to talk about as I hire in, I actually run an internship program as well as part of my role. And so I interview a lot of interns and talk with a lot of interns as well too. And one of the things that I talk to them about is having this view of systems level thinking. And systems level thinking basically is when you're hired onto a role, that role exists within a system. And it is really important that you take the time early on in your tenure in that role to really understand what that system is. Find out who the key influencers are. Find out who all the other players are. Where does your team fall in relation to other teams within the larger organization? What dependencies do you have on others and what dependencies do they have on you? Find out all of this information, because the more you learn about the system within which you're finding yourself, the more you're able to navigate and kind of move your way through from a career standpoint. The second thing I will also share with you is with regards to this are 3 keywords, which are clarity, alignment, and intensity. In whichever role that you choose to take, you want to make sure that you are, from a clarity standpoint, crystal clear in terms of what that role means. What are the outcomes? What are the expected outcomes of that role? What does success look like? Get crystal clear on what it is that you're doing. The second thing is alignment. How does that role align to your team's goals? How does it align to your org's goals? How does it align to your company's goals? Make sure that you're very clear that the role that you're doing clearly aligns to the goals of your team, your org, and the company. And if you find that the things that you're doing are not in alignment, then you want to make sure that you talk with the leaders of your organization to adjust what it is that you're doing to make sure that you're clearly aligned. And then the last thing is intensity. Making sure that you approach the work that you're doing with the appropriate level of intensity. Approach things with a sense of urgency, making sure that you're getting things done in timely manners and things like that. So that's my career tip number 1, is that you own your career. Career tip number 2, which relates to what we were talking about earlier, which is like, you got to be you, right? You got to bring you into the workplace. If you're going in and you're trying to be something you're not, or if you're trying to kind of hide some of these things, that's exhausting, and eventually it just becomes something that will weigh you down. So figure out what makes you uniquely you. Like, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses that you need to work on as well too? Figure out ways to identify what those strengths are and figure out ways to leverage those. And then another thing I will say here as well too, that one of the things for me is that it's important to actually find leaders that you can report to, organizations where the leaders actually realize what those talents are and what those strengths are, and then leverages you on tasks and work items that allow you to actually use those talents and those strengths. All right, career tip number 3. Your skills that you have, your hard skills, your tech skills, whatever industry it is that you're going into, your finance skills, if it's a finance role, or if you're going to be HR, your HR skills, those skills are only going to take you so far. What you really, really need to spend a lot of time on, in addition to your hard skills, are what we call soft skills. Like your attention to detail, your communication skills, your collaboration skills, your passion, your drive, being dependable, being team-oriented, being organized. All of these things, if you're going to get the role, they're hiring you because you're likely wicked smart in whatever it is the area of expertise that role happens to be in. But having your soft skills developed is going to give you just a little bit of an edge over others. Being able to communicate well, being flexible, working well under pressure, dealing with ambiguity. These are all things that are not only going to help you in your work life, but they will also help you in your personal lives as well too. So making sure that you're spending some time to develop your soft skills. Okay, career tip number 4, which is you got to be willing to take risks. You got to be willing to try new things. Failure is actually okay, because failure leads to learning. And so I would say that, if there's an opportunity that's placed in front of you, this is one of the things that I've done, not really knowing, again, as I've jumped from career to career. It's like, I don't know anything about this, but I'm going to take that leap and I'm going to try it out. And then it's always ended up being a good thing for me. It's not always easy, and sometimes it's actually a bit of a challenge, but don't be afraid to be open to new experiences, because you never know. Like, for example, I would never have known way back then that I have such a passion for hacking and hackathons. Like, that is something that I absolutely adore, and something that I could do day in and day out. I love it so much. I never would have known that had I stayed on my path of going into politics, right? And so be open to and be willing to kind of shift things and try new things, because you never know. There may be some other passion out there that you just don't know that you have, because you haven't experienced it yet. So don't be afraid to take risks. Okay, just 2 more tips, and then I'm going to open it up for questions. Career tip number 5 is you got to connect with those around you. Connect with the people around you. You never know that the person sitting next to you today could actually be someone who you report to tomorrow, or is going to introduce you to your next best friend or your partner, or some other colleague. The best things you're ever going to do in life, you're going to do with other people. And so really make sure that you take the time to connect deeply with those that are around you. And I will say one little tip that I will also to give you with regards to this is, several years ago, I had a new a vice president manager that I was reporting to. And when he became my CVP, he came and we had a conversation together. And in the conversation, one of the things that he required of me being on his team is he required me to have 500 connections on LinkedIn. Okay. And I think at the time I had like 25 connections on LinkedIn. And I remember thinking, why? I didn't get it. I thought that it was dumb. I thought that it was a waste of my time. But because I was a member of this team and this was something that he was asking me to do, I figured I'm going to do it. That has been one of the best activities I've done in terms of forwarding myself in my career in my later years. So I did spend some time and I got myself up to 500 connections. I think I actually have 3,400 connections now at this point. But there have been so many connections that I've been able to, so many people that I've been able to meet, and opportunities have presented themselves as a result of those connections that I have on LinkedIn. This connection that I have, the reason that I'm speaking to you today is because of a connection on LinkedIn as well too. So if you haven't already gotten yourself a LinkedIn profile, I would highly recommend that you do that, and then really be thoughtful about reaching out and connecting with people. And I'm going to give you the same challenge that my CVP gave me several years ago, which is I'm going to challenge you to each have 500 connections minimum on LinkedIn, and then see where that takes you. Okay, last tip, and then we're done. My last career tip is stay curious. Stay curious about what there is, what's going on out there. Stay, always be in a constant state of learning, asking questions, learning about what's going on around you, finding out about different roles and different opportunities. This is where you're going to learn about maybe other passions that you don't know that you have right now. You may find those out by the connections that you make, and being curious about what it is that they do, and different types of roles and things that are out there. So be one of those types of people that stays relentlessly curious about the goings on in the world. Okay, with that, I am going to turn it back over to Omkar. Hopefully that was useful, and then we'll open it up to questions if you have any.
Yes, Linda, it was definitely useful for our audience, and your journey is also inspirational. And with that, those 6 career tips, I hope that each and everyone should take away something from it. So those tips were very useful, ma'am, and it also helped me. So one must do that. And I liked one tip about you, that is about the LinkedIn thing, that one should keep connecting and build their network. So it is very important to have a good network. So I also had no connections before, but then I realized what is the importance of LinkedIn and how does it play an important role in giving us our the career we deserve. So that is the best tip which I liked from my side, and all the other tips, to be honest, it was very useful. And we'll be back after the Q&A. We'll be back after a break, short 5 minutes break. We'll take a 5 minutes break and we'll be back. So a lot of people are commenting their questions, so we'll take it in the Q&A session. So we'll
That
be
sounds
back after a
great.
break. Yeah.
Sure. So let's meet after the break. So the break will be 5 minutes. We'll be back in 6:40 p.m. IST. So stay tuned, guys. Bye. Okay, so hey everyone, we are back from the break. So let's start the Q&A session. So hey Omka.
Yeah. Thanks for passing it over to me, and we'll just kick off with the Q&A session. So, Linda, we have our first question from Sayanta. He's asking, "Ma'am, you are one of my inspirations in Microsoft. I want to ask you, how does a recent bachelor grad student can make most of his career in the Microsoft Garage program. So he wants to join the Garage program. So how he's a recent bachelor grad. So how can he do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the Microsoft Garage actually is a very, very small team. And so what we do is we actually work with Microsoft employees. And so we don't actually have teams of engineers or large teams within the garage itself. We work with Microsoft employees. And so if you're very interested in participating in Microsoft Garage activities, then I would strongly encourage you to actually take some time to take a look at job openings within Microsoft itself, because the way that the garage works is that we are open 24/7 access to Microsoft employees. So if you become a Microsoft employee, then you are welcome to come into the garage and actually work within the garage in the context of your existing role. So there's that. So another piece as well too is the internship program. So we do have an internship program for those that are actually still studying. And if you go to Microsoft.com careers, you can actually see that there is actually a student section that's out there. And from there, you can learn about how to apply for an internship within the Microsoft Garage as well too. So those are two different ways. So become a Microsoft employee, and then you get access to the garage in all of its glory. Or if you're still a student, you can actually apply to be an intern with the garage as well too. And we have internships in India, and then an internship in Boston, and then an internship in Vancouver, Canada. So those are the locations where the internships are.
Amazing. That's great. I hope, Sayanta, your question is answered. So the next question is from Shitej, and he's asking, "Ma'am, what are the things that you suggest that what are the things that suggest that we are on the right track or not?" So he wants some advice from you.
You mean on the right track in terms of your career or learn?
Yeah, in terms of career.
Yeah, it depends on you, right? So when I think about my own self and my own career, one of the things that I have a litmus test that I use to determine if I'm kind of on the right track or not, and that is by my level of energy. So if I'm doing something and I get home at the end of the day and I'm completely exhausted, then it's probably something that's a little bit more of a weakness than a strength for me. But if I come home at the end of the day and I'm like energized and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to go back into work tomorrow morning, usually those are areas where I'm like, okay, I must be really liking this. There must be a strength here, and I need to kind of tweeze that out. One of the things that I have found, for me, is just by trial and error. It's trying things out. Like, for example, there was a time when I really thought that there's a role within Microsoft called the technical account manager. And then there was one point in my career where I really thought like that was going to be the job for me. I really wanted to go be a technical account manager because it sounded awesome. Until I had a conversation with someone who was a technical account manager. Actually, it was a leader of that organization. And I sat down with him for an hour, and he really kind of gave me the details in terms of what that role was and what skill sets were needed in order to be successful in a role like that. And I realized at that time, like, nope, this is not going to be a role for me. And so it's more kind of like trial and error. I have done roles where I don't like what I'm doing, and I will do that for a period of time until I find something else to do, and then I'll move on to a different role. But you got to try it out, because sometimes you don't know if you don't like it or you do like it until you try it. And so I would say if you have an opportunity to actually experiment with these different things, that can really help you decide, if you're on the right track with what it is that you want to do or not.
Excellent advice, Linda. And I hope that Kshitij, your doubt is clear. So next it is from the same person. Sayanta is asking, ma'am, about LinkedIn. I want to ask, how can I connect with those people who don't accept connection requests that easily?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So that happens to me all the time, right? I'll find somebody that I'm like, oh, I really want to connect with them, and then they don't respond. So I have several, and you can actually see who you've connected with. Well, you know this already, right? You see who you've connected with, and some people connect right away, and some people don't. That has been my experience as well too. And so I have found that I don't really care about that anymore. I mean, if that person doesn't take the time to connect back with me, then I find somebody else to connect with. So that has been my stance. Not everybody's going to be the right fit for connecting with you, and that's totally fine. But there's, millions of other people that are out there. I would say just kind of expand cast a wider net, and maybe seek out, other people that maybe you wouldn't expect to be a good connection on LinkedIn, and try from that standpoint as well too. Also, another thing too that I've done, which is really helpful, is like, for example, because we're having this conversation, anybody that's on this call that wants to connect with me, please do so. I'm super happy to connect with all of you on LinkedIn. And so as I connect with people, and as I have conversations, and as I meet individuals as well too, then as soon as I get back to my desk, I'll send them a LinkedIn request. So that's helpful as well too, because it's kind of fresh in their mind that they've just met you, and then you can connect with them, and they're usually more able to connect back when they know you personally, or have had some kind of interaction with you. But if they don't connect, that's on them. That's not on you. You're going to put forth the effort, and some people are going to appreciate that, and some are not. It's just, unfortunately, that is the nature of the game.
Yeah. So all the people who are watching the live stream, you can go connect with Linda. Her LinkedIn profile link is mentioned in the description box below. So Linda, can I ask you a question from my side? Can I ask you? Yeah. So my question is, in your 23 years of experience for Microsoft, did you face any challenges in Microsoft, like a project you had to tackle on and it was a bit challenging? So, tell me something about your challenges you faced in your journey.
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. I would say there's two kind of challenges that come to mind that I'll share with you. One is, one of the challenges at Microsoft, we're very much an email-driven company. And so one of the challenges that I faced is I don't think I fully understood the challenge that comes with not fully understanding intention when you're writing emails. Like, a lot of times when you write emails, the way your email can be perceived by the person who receives the email may not be the way you intend it. And so making sure that when you write emails to different individuals that you have that in mind. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. So very early on in my career, I used to have this email exchange with this woman. I can't remember her name, but I remember the situation where I used to have email conversations back with her, and I thought, based on the way that she wrote her emails, I thought she was the most awful person ever. So, I just really I thought that the intention in her emails they were just mean. And so I had built up this vision of what I thought she was in my brain, based on these emails that I was getting from her, until the day that I actually met her in person. And she was not at all what I had built her in my brain to be. She was, lovely, and someone who actually ended up becoming, a close friend of mine later on. And so that was actually something that then I actually started paying a lot more attention to, is like how I write my emails and how I come across, and the voice of my emails as well too, is very important to me. So I always try to make sure that the intention that I have is clearly written into the words of the email communications that I send out. So I would give that as one thing. The second challenge that I will talk to you about is that is what we affectionately call imposter syndrome. You may have heard this before, where sometimes you kind of feel like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing, and you kind of fake it till you make it, or maybe I'm going to get found out that they don't know what I'm doing and I'm going to get fired or something like that. Even still to this day, I still struggle with that a little bit. Like sometimes I'll walk into meetings and I have, with very high level executives, and I have to stop myself and remind myself, I belong here. I belong here. This is where I'm supposed to be. I have a voice. I have something to say, and I need to just profess that confidence and actually do this. And so sometimes, again, that has been a challenge my entire career. And I even still to this day have this little bit of challenge of sometimes I feel like, I'm not the smartest person in the room, or there's other people who are far more capable than me to actually do these things. And I have to stop myself and be like, no, I belong here. I belong here. I have a voice. I have things to say, and I'm actually going to do that. So I would say those would be two challenges, two big challenges that I've experienced over my career that I still to this day. I mean, they were challenges way back then, and I'm still dealing with these challenges today. So.
That's wonderful, and thanks for sharing your experience. Like, what were the challenges you faced? Now, next question we have is from Sayank again. He's asking, ma'am, also have a question. Like, I have recently graduated with a bachelor's in technology, and I decided to pursue my master's. So, having a master's degree, it will help me open up to more opportunities.
You're asking if a master's degree will open up more opportunities?
Yeah. A master's degree will help him open up to more opportunities.
Yeah, that is a great question, and I would say that that would depend on what it is that you're seeking to do. I do not have a master's degree. I think that for me personally, a master's would not have helped what I've been doing. But I have a lot of coworkers who do have master's degrees and actually got the jobs because of that. And so I think it would depend on what your career objectives are. And also what the job market is as well too. So if you have a specific interest in a specific company, or if you have a specific interest in a specific role, I would actually do a little bit of research and find out, if for this company or for this role, does a master's degree help? And if the answer to that is yes, then I would say go for it. If not, then maybe you don't need to do that. But I think it's dependent on the company, and then also on the role that you're seeking to achieve.
Sure. And a question from my side. I saw that you worked at three companies for like 1 year, and 2 years. And after that, you were associated with Microsoft for 23 years. So what is the reason why you are still associated with Microsoft? Why do you feel connected to Microsoft? What has Microsoft offered you? So tell me something about it.
Okay, that's a great question as well too. So one of the things that I have found in my career is this is a gross generalization, but there's two kinds of people, right? There's the kind of person that really loves what it is that they do, and they want to do that same thing day in and day out. They want to get up, they want to go to work, they want to do that same thing, and then want to come home. Then there's another kind of individual that gets bored every 2 to 3 years and wants to kind of reinvent themselves and try something new. And I have found that that's me. I'm very much kind of like the gig economy type of worker, where I like to go in and actually do something for 2 or 3 years, and then I want to try something new. And so this is why I worked for WordPerfect, Novell, Corel for that period of time before I moved on to Microsoft. One of the beautiful benefits of working for Microsoft is that it is a company that is so large and is so varied that I can actually shift jobs every 2 to 3 years and stay within the same company. There's so many different things to do. So like in my tenure here at Microsoft, I've actually been a program manager, I've been an operations manager, I've been a production manager, I've been a technical instructor, I've been a group manager, I've been a PM manager. I've done many different roles. Being here like 3 years ago, or 3 months ago, I was in Boston. I was there for 3 years. Before that, I was in 3 years in another role within Microsoft there, and I'm going to be here for 3 years in Ireland. And so that has been one of the benefits for me. I'm more kind of like a big company type gal. Some people like working for small companies where they get to do very different things on a daily basis. I like to actually focus in on something and do it really well for 3 years and then decide to do something else. And Microsoft is big enough that it allows me to do that without having to leave the company.
Okay. And before we wrap up this day 5, we have our last question, and after that we'll wrap up. So Sayanta is asking, I have one more question, ma'am, about LinkedIn. Do Microsoft do Microsoft emphasis on LinkedIn profile while looking at an application while hiring?
Yeah, so when you apply for a job now with Microsoft, you can either submit a resume or put a link to your LinkedIn profile. So yes, I would say your profile out there is really important. So if you haven't, I would encourage you to spend some time to actually beef up your profile out there, because recruiters and things like that do actually look at your LinkedIn profile very similarly to the way that they would look at your resume.
That's great. And with this, we wrap up. And I want to thank you, ma'am, for making your presence, coming up here, talking about your journey, giving some career tips to our audience. So it is so great to have you here, and you definitely inspire us all to achieve more in our future careers.
Thank you. You're doing such. Listen, I read up a little bit on MS Inspire and the work that you're doing, and I am inspired with what you're accomplishing there. So I would say keep up the great work. You're all going to do great.
Yeah, ma'am. We have one comment from Neeraj. He is saying, Linda, ma'am, explained the session very clearly, and the 6 rules for success that she told was very useful. Thank you, ma'am. It was very helpful to connect with the group of MS Inspire and to have you. So, the day 5 wouldn't be more great without you. So, thanks for accepting our invitation and coming up here and talking as a speaker. So, Sayanta is also saying, thanks a lot, ma'am. I'm very grateful to get guidance from you, and it is one of the great day in my life. So, a lot of people are really enjoyed the session. They interacted with you as well. They got an opportunity to interact with you, and it's really pleasure to have you here. And I would thanks again for joining in.
Thank you so much. I would just last little bit of encouragement is by participating in things like this, you're really helping. And so I would just say keep up the great work, and there are great things in store for you as you move forward with all of your careers.
That's great. And to everyone who have attended all the 5 days of the Industry Inspire series, I want to thank you all. A big thanks to all of you for attending these 5 days, sticking with us 1 hour every day, 6 to 7, and listening to each and every speaker, learning something new each and every day. And thank you once again, and we'll be back with another series like these on MS Inspire. So until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep inspiring. And thank you for watching.
Yeah, thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe this video.
Yeah,
and we'll be
don't
back
forget
soon.
to like, share, subscribe, like this session. If you love Linda ma'am's content, also do connect with her on LinkedIn. And she is always there to guide you all, and we are also here to help you. So make sure to like this video, share it with your peers whom you want to know about what Linda ma'am does at Microsoft and about her journey. So do check this video out.
Yes, so we'll meet everyone once again later. So thanks everyone for
Bye
joining.
everyone, take care.
Bye everyone.